everyone, and welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup podcast. My name is Kerri Shields, your host, co-founder, and president of Playeasy. And today, I'm so excited to have my coworker, Sarah Capuzzi, back as a guest to intro this podcast. Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. So just to start off, let's do a recap of last week's episode with Anthony and Travis from Auburn Opelika. What were some takeaways you had from that interview?
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome to hear how the entire community in Auburn and Opelika really work together and rally around not only the events that they're bringing in, but also enhancing their community at the same time. So it was great to hear firsthand from Travis and Anthony.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it's so hard to communicate the role that our destinations have within their community. And I thought they did such a good job explaining the trickle-down effect of the work that they do in the community, and with real examples. I also loved their story about the pickleball complex and how it has brought people from all over the world of, young, old, our age, and it just is it's cool to see the impact of sports. And Anthony, Travis, and their team were such a pleasure to work with. So it was a great conversation. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And today we have another great guest, Joelle Nguyen from Spikeball. But before we get into that, can we get into some news from the week?
Yeah, let's do it. So first off, congrats to the team at Visit Rochester on a very successful event. They recently hosted the nation's largest girls hockey tournament, the Rock City Girls Fest, and that brought together over 3,000 talented players, coaches, and families from across North America. They said the city was buzzing with excitement as the teams faced off on the ice and showcased the incredible talent and spirit of girls in hockey. So congrats to everyone in Rochester.
Love it. So second up, we have Ocala, Marion County, Florida, won 2024 Sports Destination Management Champions of Economic Impact in Sports Tourism for the 2024 Nike First in Show Volleyball Tournament at World Equestrian Center. This JVC tournament hosted 235 teams in 2024 and brought an economic impact of $3.6 million to the community and over 1,900 room nights. Congratulations to Ocala, Marion County.
Awesome. And a new event win for our partners. Both Firecracker Sports and Visit Williamsburg are partnering for the Mid-Atlantic Spring Championships from May 23rd to 26th, 2025. This inaugural event will host over 60 teams that will compete across Williamsburg venues and will also feature a kickoff home run derby with live music, food trucks, and more. Congratulations to our partners at Firecracker Sports and Visit Williamsburg.
Great. At number 4, we have Highland Sports Complex in West Virginia will host the Gateway to the West once again in 2025, a national robotics tournament. 80 high school teams and 55 middle school teams have already registered, so the event is sure to be a big success. I know we talk a lot about our destination partners, but Highland Sports Complex is an unbelievable venue out of West Virginia. And a story like this, I think it's awesome to see just the variety of sports and events that we have on the platform. I know I've said this before on the podcast, but we started with about 12 sports when we started the company in 2018. And now to see just the array of events across the platform just brings me so much joy. And so congrats to Highland Sports Complex. Excited to see the success of that competition.
Awesome. And then rounding it out with some exciting news from our team. Last week, we announced our latest innovation, Playeasy Intelligence. This is our groundbreaking suite of AI solutions crafted to elevate destination marketing and also bring visitor experiences to new heights. So the first product in this powerful lineup is our AI tour guide. It's set to officially launch in early Q1 2025. And this is tailored to enhance the visitor experience with real-time recommendations. The AI tour guide empowers destinations to create conversational experiences with their visitors that feel like they're chatting with a local expert who's helping plan their trip, all powered by your destination's Playeasy content. So we're super excited heading into 2025 to share this with all of our destinations. We have a public demo live right now, so we will put the link in the podcast description and definitely reach out if you have questions.
Yeah, and Sarah, that's a good point. If someone was listening and wanted to learn more, whether that be an event organizer, a destination, or someone listening who's not even involved but just wants to understand kind of where we're going with AI, where should they contact us?
They can find us in a few places. You can always reach us at support@playeasy.com. We are all on LinkedIn, so feel free to find us where it's easiest for you to reach out, and we'll be happy to get back to you ASAP.
Awesome. Yeah, super excited for the start of 2025. We have another exciting announcement next week, but really excited for kind of where we're going in this new age of technology. So now on to our conversation today with Joelle Nguyen, the sports marketing manager from Spikeball organization. Sarah, you were on with me for that interview. Can you give me some takeaways, something you liked about the interview that we had with Joelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this episode. I think everyone's going to love hearing this interview. Joelle has incredible energy, so you will be entertained throughout the whole conversation. What I really took away was before working at Playeasy, all I knew about Spikeball was the game that we played on the beach. So it's been eye-opening for me to learn about the sport of Roundnet, and I'm really excited for everyone to learn about Roundnet, the sport, and also the way that Spikeball, the organization, fosters community and helps make the sport more accessible to everyone possible.
Awesome. Yeah, Joelle was such a pleasure to have on. As much as I love sports, I equally love talking to people who are passionate about what they're doing. And it was clear her passion for growing the sport of Roundnet and just how far they've come since they've started and since she's been with the Spikeball organization. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup. I am so excited today to have Joelle Nguyen, the sports marketing manager from Spikeball. Joelle, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So just to start, Joelle, could you give a little bit of your background and how you got to your position in Spikeball?
Yeah, so I think my story goes beyond like where I started in the company. I've been playing for 8 years, so I learned it in my high school youth group a long, long time ago when I was in high school, and I had friends who were competing in tournaments. So right away I got competing, and I participated in a tournament in Santa Monica right by the pier. So that was my first introduction into this greater world of Spikeball. And in 2020, I started as a customer support rep. So I was on the logistics side of the company, but I had recognized this person that I had competed against. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, this is really weird that I'm re-meeting you this way, but I have some extra time. Is there anything that I can help you with? She was like, yeah, actually, I could teach you how to do this. And so I started kind of dabbling in the marketing side of the company as well. And then when my role opened up in early 2022, it just felt like everything was coming together. So I've been on the operations and logistics side of the company, marketing and sport. So I've been all around. I've been what I like to say is like serving my Roundnet community for the past 2.5 years in this role. It's been quite fulfilling, and I've been able to play at the same time. So my whole life is Spikeball and the sport of Roundnet. It's unlike anything else. I've had a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And we'll get back to your playing. I've heard very high reviews of your skill in Roundnet. So, but to start, for people who might only know Spikeball as a sport that you see on the beach, could you explain what the sport of Roundnet is and the relation to the organization of Spikeball?
Yes. The sport itself is played on teams of 2. So you're playing 2v2, and it's in like a circle formation kind of. And the rules are similar to volleyball, where you have 3 touches per team to get the ball onto the net for the possession to change. So rather than volleyball being like you have to get the ball over the net and inbounds, we play where you get the ball onto the net and there are no bounds, and it's a 360 game. So there is a lot of running, a lot of diving, a lot of very athletic plays that are happening all the time. So Spikeball is the main Roundnet equipment manufacturer for this sport, and we did have to kind of create the name Roundnet for our sport a couple years back. So we actually have a national governing body called USA Roundnet that is working with other national governing bodies around the world and our international federation to try to get the sport of Roundnet into the Olympics. So Spikeball has been kind of the pioneer in like driving this sport forward, and we've partnered with a lot of local organizations that are doing all the things in their own backyard. So we have a unique relationship with our community for sure, where we try to host a lot of tournaments and build this community around our sport. And it's been a delight. We've had a lot of tournaments from the local level all the way to the world championship level. And at Spikeball, we've had such a joy, like being part of this whole journey since the company was founded in 2008.
It's funny because when we first started Playeasy in 2018, the sport was Spikeball, and so to see it transform into Roundnet, it's cool to see how much it has evolved. And so, could you give a little bit about the origin story? I know some people might know it from the beach. Some people might have seen it for the first time on Shark Tank. So could you just give us a bit of history on that?
Yeah, that's a popular call. People are like, "Oh, I've seen it on Shark Tank." Yes. So the game itself, the product was made in 1989, and our CEO, Chris Reuter, had it from all that time ago, but then kind of pulled it out in the earlier 2000s and had seen that the patent had expired. So he was like, I'm going to like give this new life. So that's when Spikeball was founded in 2008. And since then, we've had our appearance on Shark Tank, which a clip of Mark Cuban recently resurfaced because he was on the Kelly Ripa show and he was talking about how he regrets that deal fell through. So that's always a fun one for us every time it comes up. We've been on Shark Tank, we've been on ESPN multiple times, and so it's really grown from this backyard barbecue game, you know, or maybe you've seen it on the beach, to this like emerging sport that has gained a lot of traction.
Yeah, and I know as a former athlete, anytime I have the chance to play Spikeball, it gets my competitive juices flowing. And so you immediately, you know, get that feel of why people love the game and how it's grown. But for those who might not know, could you explain kind of the structure of when it comes to collegiate, youth, and professional participation within the sport?
At Spikeball, we host the Spikeball Tour Series, which is going to be over 20 challenger events. It's like the lowest tier event. And then majors. In 2024, we had 3 majors and then a championship event. So it kind of like builds this pyramid up to our championship, which we just had a couple weeks ago in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And then on the collegiate side, we have a lot of local events. We have 10 sections across the U.S., each hosts their own sectional in the fall and the spring, and that all comes together for college nationals in May. So we have like multiple seasons, I guess, going on at the same time, and it's very exciting. There's always a lot of Roundnet to be had, and while we normally play outside, we also have indoor tournaments or indoor leagues that people are hosting during the colder months. So Roundnet never sleeps. It's great.
And that's a great question. Where can you play Roundnet? I know we've seen it on the beach. We've seen it inside, outside. What are the specifications for hosting a Roundnet event?
Anyone can host. We have so many local Roundnet organizations that are doing their own series during the year. So I live in California. We have our own series where we're playing from basically February all the way through December. So our off season is very small here in California, but you know, they have their own things that are at stake. So currently I'm playing in the California League to then try to get on our state team for other tournaments that are happening. We also have like national governing bodies who are running their own events. It looks different in a lot of different places. I know in Germany, for example, they have Bundesliga, which I believe is named after their soccer, it's a soccer name. It's not a word they made up. But they have their indoor season. So we're playing on every surface all the time. I myself am not very good at playing in basements where you play off the walls and off the floor, but we make it work. So like anywhere we have a net and a ball, it can happen. Inside, outside, and while it's recreationally on the beach quite often, our tournaments are going to be on grass and turf.
Awesome. And when you say you're competing in the California League right now, how do you pick a teammate? Is that something that you pick on your own? Is it selected for you? Are there backups for some of these events?
We have a very small, tight-knit community here where if you're in it, you basically know everybody. So for the different tournaments that are happening, we mostly mash up. I'll play with this person and then that person and then that person. But we're all friends, and it's unique because we've gotten to bond so much just playing this emerging sport, like something that all of our friends and family think we're weird for doing. But we have a unique friendship because of it. So for all of these different tournaments, you can just reach out to a friend that you've met through playing to ask if you want to, team up for this one and then maybe for that one later in the season. So it's a good time. We enjoy mashing up a lot just to keep things exciting, and having those opportunities to play with these people against these other people that it's a fun combination.
That's so unique to the sport, which I loved learning more about. And you mentioned the community. I think that was something that really stood out to me when doing research to have this conversation. Just the close-knit group and bond it seems like your community has. Can you talk a little bit about as Spikeball's mission as an organization and how you enhance that community?
Yeah. I love our mission statement, which is to bring together people through competition and fun. And I think we've done just that, but a lot of it is actually done at the very grassroots level. The sport happens to attract a lot of people who are down to say yes to doing kind of stupid stuff sometimes, but very fun things. So a lot of it is just our community being the community. It's quite wholesome and fun overall. We are just here to make this little ball and net in some ways, right? But the community really takes it further. It actually is shocking how much fun there is to be had by just this net and ball. But the community it's like inexplicable how amazing everybody is and how willing they are to meet new people and have fun and be inclusive and competitive at the same time. Like, I think it's something that is found in very few other sports in my experience. And so I've tried to explain it before. I really have. I'm like, well, I don't know. There's like this concept, there's this game that we do, and somehow it's just like magic every time there's a game. I mean, you've played it before, so I think you can kind of see and understand that it's just a lot of great things all in the same little game or like little area. Somehow it's just like magic is there. And people will ask about the community and how it is so great. And we really can't control like how the community has turned out. It's just people being awesome, people having fun, people being inclusive, and it really makes it so great.
I love that. And I think because the sport is relatively so new, how is your organization growing it from that grassroots level?
We love partnering with organizations anywhere we can. So as soon as someone sends an email and they're like, hey, my friends and I just started playing here, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm so glad that you guys are having fun with Roundnet. Let's see how we can help you build on that. Our CEO, Chris Reuter, likes to say, pouring gasoline or fuel on a fire that's already started. So as long as the passion is there, that's all you really need, from our eyes, to like get things going. It's basically those people who want to compete or host tournaments or leagues themselves. And we want to try to do our best to enable them and equip them to really grow. That's one thing that we were really excited about with San Diego Roundnet, who has their own league on Pacific Beach. It was like, they already love doing this thing and they're going to do it anyway, but how can we make that even better and do something that no one else can, because of the brand that we already have.
Yeah. And you mentioned the San Diego series. One of our my coworkers, Jake Hughes, was able to go recently to an event in San Diego and just spoke volumes of, one, how much fun it was, but two, how great the environment of the actual event was. So definitely need to make a trip out to the West Coast to see one of those. But when we talk about the collegiate series, could you talk a little bit more about the opportunities at the college level and how it's grown over the course of the last few years?
I love talking about college Roundnet. First of all, it's where I really started to get involved in the sport. And when I was at school, I went to Cal Poly. I had met some other people who had competed on a greater national scale as well. So I think that helped me kind of like learn more and see kind of the inside of this pro level of the sport. It's really where I grew passionate about Roundnet. At the time, I was the only girl who was competing on the team. There would be some other people who would come for like a little, that was fun, see you around. And to compare it to the college season now, it's grown so much, and I'm very proud of our college athletes. One thing that is unique about our college format is our D1 squads, is what we call them. We play on squads because we like to bring in this, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's so collegiate. That's it. That's how it makes sense to me. I didn't go to schools with big athletics programs, so I didn't really understand it all that much. But we want you to be on a squad competing alongside people that are your friends and that you have connections with that go beyond the sport itself. So the squad is comprised of 5 teams, 3 open teams, 1 mixed team, and 1 women's team. So to be able to compete at the top level, you have to have 7 men and 3 women playing on the same squad. And they all have equal say in whether or not your squad has success or not. So I know it sounds really confusing. You're like, why are there 5 teams on one squad? How does that work? So the teams will play against the corresponding teams on another school's squad. A teams will play the A teams, B teams, C teams, mixed teams, and then women's teams. You have to win 3 out of 5 of those matches to consider yourself the winner of that matchup. And this brings some really exciting matches where it's, the tiebreaker game, basically. We're in game 3. It all rides on this. And you've got your squad mates there to cheer you on. And it's really unlike anything else. Like, the thing that I could compare it to is the World Championship, where we have these countries who, have those friendships and loyalty to one another. And we've got some of the greatest rivalries, I think, in the sport now that go back such a long way with this squad versus squad format.
I love it. And when it comes to something like the college nationals, I know there was an RFP on Playeasy for 2025's nationals. What are you looking for out of a host city and venue?
I would say we're pretty easy. We usually just need grass or turf, which most people already have, just in one place. On one standard soccer field, we can fit 128 players at the same time. So I like to say, oh my gosh, with soccer, they're just so selfish using all of these fields for 2 teams at a time. But we can fit 32 nets, which means 64 teams and 128 players playing simultaneously. So while we prefer turf, We're great with grass as well, because those are our usual stomping grounds. And we usually only need like 3 or 4 fields for college nationals. An event like this is probably going to bring between 400 and 500 athletes from colleges across the country. So we've got really strong teams over on the West Coast here, UCLA, Cal Poly, but then we've also got the ones over in Boston, like Northeastern and Tufts. So we are trying to find a spot that's easy to travel to with the space that we need, which is not usually all that difficult. I want to say we're pretty easy. We've got our spike van that my colleague Andrew drives, and it's got all of the equipment we need, which is like 100 or something nets, the hundreds of balls. Like, we're ready to go.
And would that be the same requirements for what you need for something like the 2025 Spikeball Championships?
Yeah, that event might bring more people, so we just need a couple more fields, but the specs are basically the same thing. We still bring our own stuff. Our athletes will travel, and it's going to be a good time.
Love it. And I know you mentioned Rock Hill, York County. Recently, you had an event there. They're a partner of ours. Could you describe an example of a great relationship that you've had with a host city?
We love Rock Hill, and we had actually gone there, I believe, in 2021 or 22. But they just take care of us. They just do. I don't know how else to say it, but sometimes they make me almost cry because they're like, hey, do you need tables and chairs? And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for asking. I would say like Rock Hill, Valley Forge, and Richmond are some of our standout partners when it comes to our events. I know with Richmond, gosh, Gerald is always so on top of it, asking what we need for this or that. And an example that comes to mind is we usually want to have a pre-party or a welcome party, some opportunity where we also get to maybe explore the city a little bit. So when we had gone to Rock Hill for our championship, they said, oh, this is a great brewery that's like a mile away from the field. You guys should go there. And we gave out drink tickets, and they were incredibly accommodating with us using their green space outside. Just feels like we're very cared for when we go places, and it makes us as a staff feel very like known and very, very known, and it creates a great experience for our players too. So even like suggesting favorite restaurants or breweries or hangout spaces for us is really great because we want to make our tournaments a great experience all around, not just on the field, but certainly off of it as well.
It's all about the event experience.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you started playing were one of the only females in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about the growth of women participation in Roundnet and kind of the growth of it over the course of the last few years?
I would love to. My friend Allie Foster and I had created Women's Roundnet in 2020 as an organization that attempts to highlight and spotlight a lot of our women's play in the sport and our women's players. But again, a lot of it is just happening at the local level. So we had implemented this college squad change 2 seasons ago. And I remember when we started it, a lot of the men's players were sending me emails about how this is a terrible idea for so many reasons. And I was like, but I know that this is good for the sport in a lot of ways because it's growing the college squad and team and then women's Roundnet. And I think that growing women's Roundnet is growing Roundnet as a whole. So it went from people being very resistant to that change to our players actively recruiting women's players, and then those women's players seeing the need for like more women in leadership. So they started joining their, club boards and recruiting even more women to create this space where it's not just like people who are coming together to play Roundnet. It's like social groups. They go and do this together or that together. And that is something that I dreamed of when I was in college. And so it's this is generational trauma, basically. I was like, I wish I had this when I was playing college Roundnet. And then I made it happen. I instituted this rule where people had to do that. But I think that Roundnet has grown a lot for the better. But there are a lot of things that are helping to grow the women's sport. It's not just like we changed this rule where you have to have women and now there are more women. It's like there are more Roundnet ESPN broadcasts. There's more representation of women's players on social media. So I think there are a lot of things coming together to help grow the sport for women, but it ultimately comes down to the women, and they're doing a great job of playing and encouraging other women to play and really fostering them like as people and as players, I think. So that's been a really unique and beautiful change to see as someone who's been playing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure just seeing the elevation of participation with women. I'm just thinking of, I played college athletes, but there are so many women who played high school, grade school athletics that still want to fill those competitive juices. And so
Yes.
having the opportunity and things outside of, running or things like that, that would love to be a part of Spikeball and know that that's even an option. What a great opportunity. And you just mentioned a bit of the brand and how it's grown. Could you talk about media exposure and just some of your success from social platforms? I know you guys have a huge following on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, etc.
Yeah, I think that's grown a lot as well. I personally run the Spikeball Tour Series Instagram, and when I took that over 2.5 years ago, we had, I think, 8,000 followers, and now we have 17,000 followers on that platform. So it just encourages me that people want to see the sport and the highlights from it because we do cool things all the time. People just need to see it. But I think on the Spikeball end of things, on the Instagram and TikTok, I think people know that more as just like this brand, and they get to see Roundnet played at a very, very recreational level in a lot of ways. Like people are bringing it out when they're wakeboarding somehow, or we have this fun picture of someone bringing a Spikeball set while skydiving. And so like that is really where the brand is. It's the ball and net and then like fun. Like it can be anywhere. It can really be anywhere. So we have those platforms that are working for us to expose the sport and the brand in a lot of ways. And so that's more, I guess, top funnel. It's very digestible content that just shows the brand in very organic ways. But at the top level of the sport, we, of course, love to see these very produced ESPN broadcasts and documentary style productions. And we have had a lot of comments on that as well. Like people will say, oh, I've seen that on ESPN before when I am at conferences or just out wearing Spikeball things. So it's really cool to see the brand recognized from a lot of different platforms. And we're not done, There's a lot of Spikeball in a lot of places to be had for sure. But it's cool to see that recognition because I know 10 years ago, I would have had to give more of an explanation of what it was and then maybe do a demonstration or whatever. But now most people know it. I dare say it's a household name or activity. And people are like, oh yeah, it's that trampoline looking game. And I'm like, yes, it is the trampoline looking game. Even if you don't know the rules, you like see it and you're like, what the heck is that? And that means everything to us.
Yeah, and I could say I watched some YouTube videos before of some of your events, and it's definitely telling how I am not good, as good as I think I am. I am not compared to you guys who are doing it professionally and collegiately. So you're now a multi-sport organization recently coming out with Spike Paddle. Could you talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about that as a sport?
Yeah, we definitely look up to pickleball a lot, and we have a lot of people in our community who play a lot of other sports. I myself play a little bit of pickleball. Can't say I'm fantastic, but we have a lot of people who love disc golf and pickleball and this and that, and we just love fun. If you can't tell by now, a lot of us just love to have fun and be competitive in things. So Spike Paddle is kind of a bridge between those two sports in some ways. Um, we have played around before just using the same rules of Roundnet, but with paddles in hand, which is a fun variation in a lot of ways, just because it's like a bigger surface and you have more control over the ball. So that's one reason why we really love paddle. We also think that it is very beginner friendly. So like when kids are learning it, they might be able to, use a paddle rather than just like use their hands. Because I know hands can be quite the barrier, I guess, of great plays sometimes. So it's meant to kind of touch on a lot of things. And I myself have played paddle with some people who play pickleball, like my parents. They're like, "Oh, this is so much easier," because they're in racket sports. They see how easy that is to use a paddle rather than like I don't know, when do you grip your fingers around the? No, you just use a paddle.
Uh, and you recently got back from a trip abroad that you were
Hmm.
telling me about. I'm very jealous of that trip, but part of it was for Spikeball. Could you talk a little bit about just that trip, but the international presence that Roundnet has?
I loved that trip. That was fantastic. So we had our second world championship for our sport ever outside of London at Surrey Sports Park. And it was hosted by British Roundnet alongside our International Roundnet Federation. And so those are other entities that are hosting events, and they are amazing. First of all, I don't know how they put this together for all of these countries that are coming from all around the world, but we had 36 countries attend our world championship, which had gone up a little bit from the world championship in 2022 in Belgium. So we went from, I believe, 30 countries up to 36 countries. And I think people don't understand that that's the scale that we're operating at. Because they just think of it as a very American thing that we do on the beach. But Roundnet has grown so much over the past years, and to have over 30 countries, we had like 500 players, 600 players coming together in, London for this was insane. First of all, like you can't even understand all the things that are going on, and it's a competition that is 4 days, so it was from Thursday to Sunday, but it just felt like I could have had so many more conversations or played more games with all of these people that share this love with me. So that event is something that really marks the progress of the sport, and we're really happy to be partners of the IRF in that. It's very, very important to us that we partner with that event and really show like our Roundnet world that we love them. We love them. All the players from Europe and South America and Asia and Australia. Goodness, they have such a far journey. I can't understand it, but it really is an event like no other.
That's great, and it just shows the growth of the sport. And so, as you look forward to the next 5-10 years, what are you most looking forward to, and what are some things that we can expect out of Roundnet and Spikeball as an organization?
Goodness. On the sports side, I know we've had a lot of conversations about how do we get Roundnet into the Olympics, and that is the main focus of the International Roundnet Federation and all of these NGBs that exist across the world. We have 41 countries who have these organizations that are committed to Roundnet, its growth, and hopefully the, introduction into the Olympics someday. I think a lot of people will talk about if it's plausible for even 2028, which to me is crazy because in some ways I don't even expect this to be in my lifetime. I don't want to have those expectations for the sport, even though I love it so much and see its potential. Um, so I would say the Olympics is a lofty goal, but one that Roundnet can achieve. But on maybe a more realistic side, I see the sport growing in general. Like that's about it. And when I was doing some little research into what it takes to get a sport into the Olympics, I think I saw a figure that said, well, the sport needs to be played in this many countries by men and this many countries by women. And I think we're not there yet. So I think a big thing is just expansion, and introducing a lot more people to the sport. So I don't want to put any numbers out there, I guess, but I would love to see more college clubs and more, NGBs popping up around the world. And hopefully when we have our world championship in 2028, 2030, which sounds like a fake year, but hopefully we're getting closer to those numbers that we need to push Roundnet towards the Olympics more. But I think the arbitrary, convoluted goal is that I just want to see more people having fun playing Roundnet, even if it's the backyard barbecue beach vibe. Like, there's so much fun to be had, and the potential is there, for both our, washed up athletes and people who have never played a sport before, because that's how approachable and inclusive I think Roundnet can be.
It's awesome. It's so clear to see your passion. And I wanted to end with two more personal questions. One being, I know you are very highly skilled in the sport of Roundnet, from what I hear. What is one of the most memorable events you've been a part of, either on the organization side or as a competitor?
I would have to say that Worlds 2024 is quite the highlight for me. I was on the women's team for the USA, which was something that I had been aiming for some time, and it was such an honor to be able to represent our country. And I can't even explain how surreal it really was. But we had gone into the event attempting to defend 5 titles, if I'm correct, 5 titles. Men's individual, women's individual, mixed individual, and then women's and men's squads. And we had defended both men's and women's squads in some exciting matchups where everyone else in the tournament was watching. And to be there alongside these people that I had been competing with and against for so long was very memorable to me. And I don't remember the last time I felt that excited before that. So I think it was just such a moment of pride for our whole squad, and just felt like quite the accomplishment, I think, for us, because we had so many targets on our backs from the worlds prior. So that was very special to me. I would say another event that stands out to me is another tournament hosted by American Spikers League, which is another organization that's out of Idaho, but they have a very unique squad format as well that is so complicated I don't think I could understand it or explain it sometimes. But you do play with different partners on your squad throughout the event, and so I feel like that one is a special one, just because they're with people from California that are on my squad, and we can pick each other up and hype each other up, and it's fantastic. They're the squads are really where it is.
I love how happy and passionate you are when talking about the sport. It brings me a lot of joy. And Joelle, what is the biggest lesson you've learned while being in your position with Spikeball?
Gosh. Hmm. I'm in a unique position for sure. I think being a woman of color in an emerging sport is a unique spot. And I think that um, we've had a lot of opportunities to push the sport forward in a lot of ways, with dissenters for sure. And thinking about the college squads, that was something that came with a lot of pushback when it initially was introduced. And I just kind of had to say, I can't make everyone happy. And I know that we at Spikeball have more scope than a lot of people who are playing the sport do. And we can see the potential of this. So I'm just going to go move forward confidently with this decision, knowing that it's going to eventually be good for the sport. And that was difficult for me as someone who is pretty people pleasy often. So to make those decisions despite having that pushback has been a great lesson for me. Just to have confidence in my experience and my critical thinking has been huge. And yeah, it was not easy, and it still is kind of a sore spot for me when I talk about the college squad sometimes. But overall, I know that it's been a really, really good thing for our sport, and the effects of it are widely positive. And it was difficult at first, but I think we've had to make a lot of decisions where we say we are doing the best for what we can, and we're going to try our best to push the sport. I think people know that we have good intentions. Like, I think that really speaks for me. And it like my colleagues and I are, well-intending people, but sometimes we have to make those hard decisions, and that's been quite a lesson for me.
Yeah, trusting your gut. But I can say, even just from this
Yeah.
conversation, it's clear that you want the best for the sport, and want it
Hmm.
to continue to grow. And Joelle, thank you so much for being on. This has been such a pleasure and so nice getting to know you. If people were interested in either getting involved in the sport from a youth, collegiate, or professional level, and or hosting one of your events, what would be the best
Hmm.
way to get in touch with your organization?
Emailing tournaments@spikeball.com is great. You'll be in touch with me or my colleague Andrew, and we are the people at Spikeball who are most involved in the sport of Roundnet. And we do want to help you and get you set up however you can. So that's a great way to reach us. On socials, I also run Spikeball Tour Series, and I feel like that's also a great way to see what the sport is like outside of the recreational level. So if that's something that interests you, we've got a lot of highlights and things, the inside scoop on the sport, if you will, over there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joelle. It's been a pleasure. And until next time, see you then.
Thank you.